Traces along the cliffs. Chapter 1. The room above the harbor. The wind had come early that year, rolling in from the Atlantic like an old god that had forgotten mercy. The sea rose against the rocks in long, heavy breaths, and the gulls rode it like scraps of paper. From his window above the harbor, Nathan watched the morning break itself apart against the gray. The room still carried her scent, faint, like smoke long settled into the walls. He had left the window open all winter, hoping the wind would take it. It never did. Each night, the sea crept in through the shutters, bringing salt and cold and a kind of punishment he didn't fight anymore. The harbor below was half empty now. The fishermen had taken their boats inland for repairs. Only the old trawler remained, rocking slow, its ropes sighing against the pier. He used to tell her the sound of ropes in the wind was the sea remembering. She said that was foolish. The sea remembers nothing. He poured coffee into a chipped enamel cup and watched the water turn dark with the reflection of clouds. It would rain before noon. He had learned to read the weather as he once read her, by the quiet signs, the way silence changes shape before it breaks. Someone knocked at the door downstairs. A sharp, familiar sound. He stayed still for a moment, as if sound alone could deceive him. The wind caught the shutter and slammed it open. He went down the stairs slow, feeling each step in his knees. The door shook under another knock. When he opened it, she was there, coat dripping, hair wild, eyes dry. "Hello, Nathan," she said. He stared at her. The years had made her thinner, or maybe sharper. "Hello, Mara," he said. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," she said, stepping past him. "But here I am." The storm broke hard against the roof, and somewhere outside, a bell rang through the fog. He shut the door and leaned against it. The room smelled of wet wool and wind. She stood by the table, peeling off her gloves, slow and deliberate. Her fingers were pale. The gold band was gone. He noticed, but didn't ask. "You look older," she said. "I am. I didn't mean that way." "I know." He poured her a cup of coffee without asking. She took it, warmed her hands around it, and sat. The chair creaked the way it always had. The sound reached him like something out of a dream he'd tried to forget. "How did you find me?" "You never left," she said. "I knew you wouldn't. I didn't think you'd remember where this place was." "I tried not to," she said. "But I did." The wind howled against the walls. The door rattled once, then settled. Nathan took his coat from the rack and hung it by the stove to dry. He didn't look at her again until he sat down. "You came all this way for something." "I came for nothing," she said. "And maybe that's something." He smiled, small and tired. "That sounds like you." "It's not," she said. "Not anymore." He studied her face. It had been 10 years, but the years hadn't softened her. There were lines now, fine as cracks in porcelain, but her eyes were the same, green-gray, shifting with light. Once they'd fought under a sky that color. She had thrown his letters into the tide and watched them drift away. That was the last time he'd seen her. Until now. He said, "You should take the upstairs room. It's warmer." "I'll stay here," she said. "I won't be long." "How long?" "Until it stops raining." "It might take days." "I know." By afternoon, the rain had thickened into sheets. The harbor vanished behind a curtain of gray. The trawler was gone, or maybe just hidden in the fog. Nathan brought wood from the shed, stacking it by the stove. Mara sat by the window, tracing circles in the condensation on the glass. "Do you still write?" she asked. "Not for a long time." "You should." I said everything I needed to. "No one ever does." He didn't answer. He stirred the fire instead, listening to the hiss of wet wood. She turned from the window and watched him. There was something unreadable in her eyes. Remorse, maybe, or memory wearing a new disguise. "You still have the photographs," she said. He looked up. "You went through my things." They were in the open. He didn't argue. The photographs were tacked above the desk, small squares of faded life. The two of them on the deck of a fishing boat. Her laughing into the sun. His arm around her, half awkward, half sure. She rose and stood before them. "We were so young." "Everyone says that," he said. "Doesn't make it less true." "No," he said. "Just makes it easier to lie about." She turned toward him. "You always did that." "What?" "Hide truth inside a sentence. And you always wanted to open it." They looked at each other for a long time. The stove clicked and settled. The sea roared beyond the walls like a living thing that wanted in. Evening came slow. The storm didn't ease. Mara found a blanket and wrapped herself in it. Nathan cooked soup in an old tin pot. The smell of onions and salt filled the room. He handed her a bowl, sat across, and began to eat. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Which one?" "The last one. Every day once." "Why?" "Because I didn't get to finish the sentence I was saying when you left." "What was it?" He thought a moment. "I don't remember anymore." She smiled without humor. "That's convenient." "It's mercy," he said. "There's a difference." For a while, only the sound of spoons and rain filled the space between them. When she set her bowl down, her hands trembled slightly. "I didn't come here to start again," she said. "I didn't think you did. I came because I heard about Ellen." He froze. "Who told you?" "Your brother. I saw him in town." "She's gone." "I know." The words hung there. He looked down at his hands. The knuckles were swollen from years of work. Ellen's ring still sat on the shelf by the stove, small and gold, catching light when the fire moved. "I didn't come to hurt you," Mara said softly. "You couldn't, if you tried," he said. "I already did. Once was enough." The storm outside deepened, beating against the shutters. The world was water and wind, and the low hum of things remembered too late. They talked until the fire burned low. The years between them folded in strange ways, old laughter beside new silences. She told him about her marriage, her leaving, her drift through cities that didn't care who she was. He told her little, only that he'd stayed, that he'd fished, that he'd written once, then stopped. At midnight, she stood. "I'll take the upstairs room after all," she said. He nodded. "There's a lamp by the bed." She paused on the stairs. "Do you still drink?" "Sometimes," he said. "Not tonight." "Good," she said. "One of us should remember clearly." He listened to her footsteps fade. The wind eased for a moment, as if the storm was catching its breath. He poured himself a drink anyway. The whiskey burned, but it steadied something inside him. He looked at the photographs again. One had fallen slightly from the wall, her face tilted, caught mid-laugh. He pressed the tack back in, careful, like it might hurt her if he pushed too hard. In the middle of the night, he woke to a sound. Not the storm. A door creaking open, bare feet on the floorboards above. Then, silence. He sat up, listening. The house shifted in the wind. After a moment, there was another sound, the slow, deliberate descent of someone coming down the stairs. Mara stood in the doorway, wrapped in the blanket, her hair loose. The lamplight caught her face in fragments. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I know. The room feels strange. Like it remembers too much." "It does." She crossed to the window. The rain had thinned, but the harbor was a black mirror. The lamp flickered in the glass. "I used to think if I ever came back here, the sea would look smaller," she said. "It doesn't." "No, it never does." He poured her a small glass. She didn't refuse it. They drank in silence. "Finally," she said, "I never told you why I left the way I did." "You didn't need to." "Yes, I did. You just didn't want to hear it." He said nothing. The storm had begun again, lighter now, as though it had tired itself out. "I was pregnant," she said quietly. He looked at her, but her face was turned away. "You didn't tell me." There was nothing to tell. It didn't last. He closed his eyes. "Why come now?" "Because I thought I could finally say it without breaking." The lamp sputtered once, then steadied. He reached for the glass, his hand slow, deliberate. "You could have written," he said. "I tried," she said. Every letter sounded like an apology. "And you don't apologize." "No," she said. "I just leave." They stood there for a while, listening to the sea beating against the rocks, steady as a heart too stubborn to quit. By dawn, the storm had gone. The world outside gleamed wet and clean, as if nothing had ever happened. Mist hung low over the harbor. A pale light crept through the cracks of the shutters. Nathan was still awake. He hadn't moved from the chair. The whiskey was gone. So was she. He found her note on the table. 2 lines in her handwriting, slanted, unhurried. "You were right. The sea remembers nothing. But I do." He read it twice, then folded it and put it in his pocket. Outside, the gulls screamed against the morning. The tide was coming in. He went to the window, opened it wide, and let the wind carry the last of her scent out into the gray. Chapter 2. The Mediterranean Trail. The ferry left the harbor at first light. Nathan stood on the deck, coat collar turned high, the salt wind tearing at his hair and clothes. He hadn't slept more than an hour, and his knees ached from the stairs and the weight of waiting. He held Mara's note in one hand, folded small and crumpled, as if letting it touch the air would call her nearer. The Atlantic receded behind him. Fog hung over the water, clinging to the hull like a wet shawl. Every few minutes, he checked the horizon, as if she might appear on the edge of it, stepping from the mist. The gulls rode the waves in sharp arcs, their cries cutting through the roar of the ferry. Nathan gripped the railing and felt the tremor of the engine through his fingers, the same tremor he felt when she spoke, unguarded, across a kitchen table. He remembered the photograph again, the one of her laughing on the deck of the trawler, hair wild in the wind, arm around his shoulder. It was the only proof that she had been real in a time when reality felt thin, like smoke through a broken window. He had left it tacked to the wall, where it had fallen slightly last night. Now, at sea, the image was vivid in his mind, almost a tether to a life that had slipped past him too quickly. The ferry docked in a town that seemed almost borrowed from memory. Whitewashed walls, narrow streets twisting like veins, the smell of salt and citrus in the air. Nathan stepped off the ferry with a single bag slung over his shoulder. The sun was already high, burning through clouds in streaks of yellow and white. It was foreign and familiar at once, like stepping into a dream half remembered. He asked the first man he saw about inns. The man spoke in clipped, melodic phrases Nathan did not understand. Nathan fished a pen from his pocket and wrote Mara's name. The man nodded slowly, gesturing down a street that narrowed as it descended toward the sea. Nathan followed, boots clattering on cobblestones, eyes scanning every doorway, every figure, for a sign of her. The street opened into a small square. A fountain gurgled in the center, water glinting like silver in sunlight. A woman hung linens on a balcony, humming a tune Nathan did not recognize. He stopped, breathing hard, and felt the absence of Mara like a weight in his chest. The square was quiet, but for the water, the distant cries of children, and the low murmur of the wind. He found an inn at the far edge of the square. Its door was heavy, wooden, and unmarked. A man behind the counter raised his eyebrows at Nathan's coat and bag. "Room?" Nathan asked, keeping his voice neutral. The man gestured to a staircase. Nathan paid in coins he had exchanged at the ferry. The room was small, bare, with a single bed and a window overlooking the sea. He set his bag down and opened Mara's note again. "You were right. The sea remembers nothing. But I do." He folded it slowly, as if it were fragile glass. The words were a compass, pointing somewhere he could not see. He left the room without unpacking, descending the stairs and stepping back into the sun-warmed streets. He moved without plan, letting the city guide him. Narrow alleys spilled into marketplaces where women sold olives and bread, and men argued over fish with hands coated in scales. The scent of citrus mixed with brine and with smoke. Nathan stopped at a small cafe, ordering black coffee in a language that barely mattered. He watched people move, searching for a gesture, a shadow, a shape that might be Mara. An old man at the next table noticed him staring. He shook his head slowly, muttering something in the soft, rolling accent of the coast. Nathan nodded, as if the gesture alone could explain why he was there. The man's eyes were kind but wary, as though he had seen strangers come and go with grief stitched into their coats. Nathan drank slowly, letting the bitter coffee wake him. He felt the pulse of the city, the rhythm of streets that had held countless secrets before him. He imagined Mara walking these same alleys, listening to the same cries of fishmongers, feeling the same sun on her skin. The thought was unbearable and comforting at once. He left the square and climbed the hill that led to the old quarter. Houses clung to the stone, balconies stacked like steps in a long, impossible ladder. Laundry swayed in the sun, catching light like banners in slow motion. Nathan's legs ached, but he didn't stop. Every corner, every doorway, felt like it could hold her, or the memory of her. At the top of the hill, he found a church. Its doors were open. Nathan stepped inside. Cool stone walls swallowed the sunlight. A single candle flickered near the altar. He thought of Mara lighting candles in old churches when they traveled together, the scent of incense clinging to her hair. The memory pricked at him. A priest entered from a side door, moving slowly, eyes down. Nathan said nothing, just let the silence of the church settle over him. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine her here, kneeling at the front pew, hair loose, hands folded. Then he remembered the note, the quiet accusation in its words, and he left. Outside, the streets were narrower now, shadows falling across the walls like slow hands. Nathan followed instinct, letting the city's geography pull him down toward the coast. Small boats were tethered in hidden coves. Fishermen hauled nets. The sea stretched wide, impossibly blue, and the smell of it was sharp in his nostrils. He thought he saw a figure moving along the far edge of the harbor. He ran. The figure turned. It wasn't her. Just a woman carrying a basket, hair dark against the sun. He stopped, panting, heart hammering, and laughed quietly at himself. Every step, every movement, every stranger could have been Mara. And yet, he could not stop. The chase was as vital as the air he breathed. He found a small pier where the water lapped against weathered planks. Boats rocked gently, tied with rope frayed and gray. Nathan climbed to the edge and looked out over the sea. The waves shimmered in sunlight, tiny diamonds dancing across blue. He remembered the Atlantic harbor, the fog, Mara's coat dripping, her eyes dry. The contrast made his chest ache. A voice called from behind. "You're far from home." Nathan turned. A man, wiry, tanned, with hands that had been at sea for years, leaned against a post. His accent was strange, clipped, harsh in a way that carried authority. "I'm looking for someone," Nathan said. The man studied him, head tilted. "Many are looking," he said. "Few find what they seek." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "She's here," he said. "I know it." The man didn't answer, just let his gaze drift over the water. Nathan felt impatience rising like a tide. "You know her?" The man shook his head. "Perhaps. Perhaps not." Then he straightened, hands tucked into his belt, and walked away, leaving Nathan alone with the sea and the wind. Nathan sat on the pier, letting his legs dangle over the edge. He pulled Mara's note from his pocket again. The words seemed smaller in daylight, like a whisper in a cathedral. But he believed them. He believed that she remembered, that she had left a trail, that he could follow it. He noticed a small rowboat, unattended, tied to a cleat near the edge. The oars were in place. The water calm. He considered taking it, rowing out to where the harbor met the open sea, letting the currents carry him in search of the shape of her. But he didn't move. He knew she would not want him to rush blindly, that the search was as much for understanding as for reunion. By late afternoon, he wandered back into the alleys, letting the city's rhythm guide him. He passed a fountain with water running clear and cold. Children played along its edge, throwing stones and shouting in a language he could not parse. Nathan smiled faintly at them, then moved on. Every shadow, every reflection in the stone walls seemed alive, holding possibilities he could not yet name. At a small cafe, he stopped again. A woman serving coffee looked at him, unafraid, curious. He ordered without speaking, paying in coins. She set the cup down in front of him, and for a moment, their eyes met. Nathan felt the strange, electric sensation of recognition, not of the woman, but of the world he had entered. Every interaction was a signpost, every gesture a clue. As evening fell, the lights softened, gold fading to pink across the rooftops. Nathan climbed a hill to overlook the town. The harbor lay below, quiet now, boats resting like exhausted animals. The sea stretched beyond, immense, unknowable. He imagined her somewhere in that vastness, moving silently, thinking, remembering, hiding, daring him to follow. He did not move. He sat on the stone wall, hands resting on his knees, and watched the light die. And then he saw it, a thin trail of smoke rising from a distant house near the cliffs. He did not know if it was hers. He did not know what he would do if it were. But he knew one thing. He would follow it. The wind carried the smell of salt and would smoke. The horizon burned in fading light. Nathan rose and began to descend the hill. The streets ahead were darkening. The town was quiet, as if waiting for him to make the next step. Every sense screamed that she was close. Or perhaps that she had left another trail for him to chase, deeper into the labyrinth of memory and desire, into the tangled coast of the Mediterranean night. He paused at the first bend, listening to the distant roar of waves against the cliffs. The sky was a deep indigo, the stars just appearing. Somewhere ahead, someone moved. Nathan felt his pulse tighten, anticipation and fear tangled together. He whispered her name, barely audible over the wind. "Mara." No answer. Only the sea, the cliffs, and the streets stretching onward, waiting to reveal the truth, or perhaps to test the endurance of a man who had already lost too much. He stepped forward. Chapter 3: The Cliffs at Dusk. The narrow road twisted along the cliff's edge. Whitewashed houses leaned toward the sea as if in prayer, their windows dark and shuttered. Nathan moved slowly, boots scraping stone, hands gripping his bag strap. Each step carried the weight of 10 years, and yet he felt light, as if the pursuit itself had lifted some of the heaviness he'd carried through Atlantic fog and harbor wind. The trail Mara left was faint, a ribbon of smoke from a distant chimney, a shadow in a window, a door left ajar for no reason at all. He followed each one as if it were a map, knowing that sometimes the map led nowhere. Sometimes it led to truth. The cliffs dropped sharply to the water, waves breaking on jagged rocks. The wind came in gusts, cold and briny, tearing at his coat and hair. He paused to catch his breath, hands on knees, listening. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A woman laughed. Or perhaps it was the wind playing tricks. He could not tell. He thought of her last words in the Atlantic harbor, the note pressed to his pocket. You were right. The sea remembers nothing. But I do. What did she remember? What had she left unsaid? Every memory he had of her felt like a fragment of a puzzle he had never completed, and yet he felt certain that she had not left without reason. She had wanted him to come. He turned into an alley too narrow for more than one person at a time. The walls pressed close, the stones warm from the day's sun. Laundry swayed above him. A cat crossed in front of his feet, pausing to watch him, and then disappeared. He followed the alley until it opened onto a terrace. The view of the cliffs below was spectacular. Sheer drops, waves breaking in white foam, gulls riding the air currents like thoughts in motion. He leaned against the terrace wall, listening. Footsteps above or behind. His chest thudded. He had expected to be alone, yet every step, every sound seemed amplified. He felt the pull of memory, as if it too were trying to guide him to her. And then he saw her. She stood on the balcony of a house further along the cliff, hair loose in the wind, the last light of dusk painting her in gold and shadow. She did not move, only looked out at the sea. The wind caught her scarf and flung it across the balcony. He saw the faintest hesitation in her shoulders. She had expected him. He stepped forward. Hello, he called, voice low but firm. She turned. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed, a faint smile brushing her lips. Nathan, she said, voice carrying in the wind. He took a careful step closer, trying to measure distance. The cliffs yawned between them, and yet he felt as if no space could truly separate them. You left a trail, he said. I followed it. She laughed softly. You always do what you promise, don't you? I try, he said. Not always successfully. She shook her head. Not always, but close enough. They stood, silent, letting the wind fill the space. He noticed the subtle change in her eyes, the green-gray shifting to something darker, almost unreadable. She had grown in ways he could not measure from memory alone. And yet, she was the same woman who had left the Atlantic harbor without explanation, leaving him to wait, to wonder. I didn't think you'd come, she said, finally. Her voice carried no accusation, only recognition. I always come, he said. Eventually, she turned back to the sea, letting the breeze whip her hair around her face. The cliffs are dangerous, she said. People fall if they're not careful. I know, he said, but I'm careful. Careful, she repeated softly, almost to herself. We weren't careful once. He felt the weight of her words. He had replayed that moment countless times. The fight, the storm, the words unsaid, the photograph tacked to the wall in his Atlantic room. Everything came rushing back, sharp as broken glass. He stepped closer. I've thought about that night every day, he said. And every day I've tried to forgive myself. She turned slowly. And me? You, he said. I don't know if I can forgive you. Or if I want to. Or if I should. She tilted her head. Maybe it's not about forgiveness. Maybe it's about seeing it for what it was. And letting it exist. He nodded, letting her words settle. He felt the tension in his chest ease, just a fraction, enough to breathe. But the wind howled, carrying salt and the scent of wild herbs, and the sound reminded him how fragile this moment was. One wrong step on the cliff, one gust too strong, and everything could end. I don't understand why you came, he said. I told you, she said. I didn't come to start again. I came because I had to. And now that I've seen you, I don't know what I'll do. He studied her face. The light caught her cheekbones, the line of her jaw, the way her hair moved across her shoulders. Every detail was a confirmation that she existed. And yet, Every detail was also proof of the distance they had allowed to grow between them. You could stay, he said. You could choose to stay. She shook her head. I can't. Not yet. I need something else. And you need to see it for yourself. See what? She smiled faintly, almost sadly. The life I've built while you were waiting. The choices I've made. The paths I've walked. Nathan felt a flicker of frustration. Paths, he said, or escapes. She met his gaze, unflinching. Both. Sometimes the same thing. Sometimes not. He stepped closer again. The cliff dropped to their left, waves roaring in the twilight. His heart pounded in his ears. You could have written, he said. I tried, she said. Letters. Messages. Attempts. But they never reached you. Or maybe I never sent them. Maybe I wanted you to come. I came, he said. I followed you across seas, across lands, across memory itself. And now I'm here. She held his gaze. Her eyes glimmered in the fading light. And now you're here, she said softly. And I'm afraid. Afraid? Yes, she said. Afraid of what we could be. Afraid of what we might destroy. Afraid of what's already been destroyed. He nodded. He had no answer. Only the wind, the cliffs, the sea, and the sharp knowledge that everything could end with one step, one word, one choice. The night fell, bringing shadows that softened the jagged edges of the cliffs. Nathan and Mara remained where they were, neither moving, neither speaking, letting the wind carry their breaths away. Somewhere below, the waves struck the rocks in relentless rhythm. Somewhere above, stars began to emerge, one by one, indifferent to human longing. Finally, she turned, stepping back toward the house. I can't stay, she said again. But I needed to see you. Needed you to know I exist. He followed her a few steps, then stopped. Tomorrow, he asked. She hesitated. Perhaps, she said. Perhaps not. You'll see. And then she disappeared into the door of the house, leaving Nathan on the cliff, wind tearing at his coat, salt on his skin, heart racing. He stood there for a long time, listening to the sea, waiting for some sign, some echo, some clue to guide him further. The town below was silent now. Lamps flickered in windows. Somewhere a dog barked. The wind brought scents of rosemary and brine. Nathan took a deep breath. He did not know if she would stay, if he would find her again, or if he had merely chased a shadow across cliffs and alleys. He knew only one thing. He could not stop. The Mediterranean night stretched out before him, limitless, dangerous, beautiful. Somewhere in that expanse, Mara moved. And he would follow her, step by step, until the sea itself remembered, or until it did not. Nathan stayed on the cliff for a long while, watching stars emerge above the crashing waves. He thought of the Atlantic harbor, the ferry, the note pressed to his chest. He thought of the photograph, of the room where her scent lingered. And he felt, finally, that the search, tense, exhausting, unforgiving, was only beginning. He did not move. He waited. And when the wind shifted, carrying a faint, familiar scent, he stepped forward. Chapter 4. The Cove of Shadows. Nathan left the town at first light, the cliffs behind him painted pink and gold by the rising sun. The streets were quiet, almost asleep, and he moved without sound, boots scuffing stone as if the city itself might betray him. The memory of Mara lingered in every shadow, every shuttered window, every narrow alley where wind rattled drying laundry. The note was folded in his pocket, edges frayed, ink faint but readable. You were right. The sea remembers nothing. But I do. It was a talisman, a compass, a warning. He did not know what he was expecting to find, only that he had to follow whatever trace she had left, to see her, to understand. The road led him down a narrow gorge, walls of limestone cutting sky from sea. Olive trees clung to the sides like stubborn hands. Rocks crumbled underfoot. Nathan paused, listening. Only the wind, the occasional cry of a gull, and the distant hiss of waves far below. He spotted footprints in the dust, small, narrow, fresh. His heart clenched. They disappeared where the gorge opened onto a hidden cove, where the water was still except for ripples against dark rocks. Nathan crouched, examining the marks. They were hers, he was certain, though he did not know why they had stopped here. A small boat rested pulled ashore, tied to a jagged outcropping of stone. The wood was worn, the rope frayed. Someone had left it recently. Nathan's pulse quickened. He could almost see her standing there, wind in her hair, looking back at him over the cove. He moved carefully, descending the last stretch of the gorge to the water. The stones were slick, and he kept his weight low, hands brushing rough rock to steady himself. The smell of salt was stronger here, more immediate, almost electric. Waves licked the shore, the sound hollow and deep, echoing in the enclosed space of cliffs and trees. A figure emerged from the shadow of a rock. Nathan froze. "Who's there?" he called, voice low, cautious. The figure stepped into the sunlight. It was not Mara. A woman, older, with skin tanned by years of sun and hands worn by work, emerged from the rocks. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "You're following someone," she said, statement, not question. "I maybe," Nathan said. "I'm looking for her. For someone." The woman studied him, lips tight, eyes moving to the cove, the boat. "Many come looking," she said. "Few know what they're after." "You." Nathan hesitated. "I know her name," he said. "Mara. I think she's somewhere here." The woman nodded slowly. "Then you are close." "But close does not mean safe." Nathan frowned. "Safe? From what?" "From what you do not yet understand," she said. "From the cliffs. From the water. From memory." He felt the weight in her words, but did not reply. He could only nod. The woman pointed to a narrow path winding up the cliffside. "She passed this way," she said. "Yesterday, or maybe this morning. I do not know. She always moves alone, leaves only whispers behind." "Do you know where she's going?" Nathan asked. She shook her head. "She chooses paths for reasons only she knows. The cliffs, the villages, the coves, they are her language. Follow carefully." Nathan thanked her and continued. Every step was cautious. The path was jagged, stones loose underfoot. The cliffs dropped sharply on one side, the sea dark and churning far below. His heart raced. He thought of the Atlantic harbor, of Mara's note, of the photograph on his wall, of the smell of her coat pressed to his chest. Every step was both pursuit and penance. The path led him to a small village clinging to the edge of the cliffs. Whitewashed houses, shuttered windows, narrow streets winding like veins. Nathan moved quickly, listening, scanning, searching. Every doorway, every shadow, every figure might hold her, might offer a clue. A child ran past him, basket on her head, laughing. A man swept the steps of a shop. A dog barked somewhere far off. Nathan felt the tension build. The town felt alive, aware of him, of her, of the chase, as if the stones themselves remembered every footstep she had taken. He paused at a small fountain, water clear and cold. He drank from it, feeling the chill carry through him. Then he moved on, following the memory of footprints in dust, the faintest indication of a trail. The sun was high when he reached another cove. Waves struck jagged rocks, spraying mist into the air. A small fishing boat was tied to a post. Its wood was wet, its paint peeling. Nathan knelt to examine it. Someone had been here recently. The boat had been used. And then he saw her. She stood on a rock further along the shore, hair whipping in the wind, coat pulled tight against the spray. Her back was to him. For a moment, Nathan could not breathe. She was both impossibly far and unbearably close. He called her name. "Mara." She turned, eyes wide for just a second, then narrowed. "Nathan," she said, voice low, cautious. He stepped closer, over wet stones, careful not to slip. "I followed you," he said. "All the way. Across seas, towns, cliffs. I found you." She did not move. Her gaze was steady, distant, like someone measuring the waves before deciding to dive in. "You shouldn't have," she said. "And yet I did," he said. The wind picked up, carrying salt and spray. Nathan's heart hammered. The sea crashed against the cliffs, white and foamy, relentless. He realized then that the chase had become more than pursuit. It was survival. It was recognition. It was confession. She stepped closer to the edge, wind tugging at her scarf. "Do you understand?" she asked. "Understand what?" "That I cannot stay," she said. "Not here, not anywhere you can follow." He closed the distance between them, careful, measured. "I understand that," he said. "But I am here, and I will be wherever you allow me to be." Her eyes flickered. For a moment, vulnerability broke through the careful mask she had built. "You don't know what you're walking into," she said. "I know enough," he said. "Enough to follow. Enough to wait. Enough to keep walking. No matter the cliffs, the towns, the water." She laughed softly, the sound carried by the wind, sharp and musical. You always do what you promise, she said. Even when it kills you. Even when it scares me, he said. They moved along the cove in silence, Nathan careful to keep the distance she allowed. The cliffs were jagged, the path uneven. Every step was an exercise in control, focus, and endurance. He noticed the scars on rocks, the worn stones, the traces of other travelers. Mara's presence was everywhere, and nowhere, a ghost stitched into the landscape. A fisherman appeared on the far edge of the cove. He leaned on a post, watching. Nathan kept his gaze forward. Mara's eyes flicked toward the man, then back at Nathan. No words passed. It was a test, unspoken, like the water testing the rocks. The fisherman moved on. Mara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Nathan did not speak, only continued, letting the rhythm of the cliffs guide him. The afternoon light faded, orange spilling into the sea. They reached the end of the cove, a narrow stair carved into the cliff. Mara paused, then stepped upward. Nathan followed, careful, silent. The stair wound around the rock, leading to a small plateau where a single house crouched against the wind. Smoke curled from its chimney. She stopped at the door. "This is where I rest," she said. "For now. Tomorrow?" Nathan asked. She hesitated. "Tomorrow," she said. "Or the next day? You will follow, won't you?" "I will," he said. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and violet. Nathan watched Mara disappear into the house. The wind carried her scent briefly, then it was gone. He stood on the cliff, watching the stars appear one by one, waiting for what the night would bring. The Mediterranean night stretched wide, full of secrets, cliffs, and tides. Nathan felt alive in a way he hadn't in years, every nerve taut, every sense sharpened. Somewhere in the labyrinth of cliffs, alleys, and coves, Mara moved. And he would follow her, step by step, until the sea itself remembered, or until it did not. Chapter 5. The House on the Plateau. Nathan stayed at the edge of the plateau, watching the house. Smoke curled from the chimney, thin and pale against the violet sky. The wind carried the scent of salt and wood smoke, the faintest hint of herbs. Somewhere behind him, the cliffs dropped sharply to the sea, waves striking rocks in a rhythm as relentless as his heartbeat. He had followed her across coasts, through villages, along cliffs. Every step had been a step into memory, into longing, into uncertainty. And now, finally, he was here. The door opened quietly. Mara stepped out, coat drawn tight, scarf flapping. Her eyes met his, steady, unyielding. "You followed," she said. Not a question, but a statement. "I did," Nathan said. "All the way." She studied him, the shadows of twilight casting lines across her face. "And now?" "Now," he said, "I don't leave. Not until you tell me why." Her eyes flickered, something behind them shifting. "You always demand answers," she said softly. "And you never wait for them." "I waited," he said. "I've been waiting my whole life for you." She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You exaggerate. You dramatize." "I exaggerate nothing," he said. "I've followed your trail across continents, cliffs, and alleys. I have proof enough of how far I'll go." She tilted her head. "Proof doesn't matter. Presence does. And you are present. You've always been present. Even when I tried to forget you." Nathan took a step closer. "Then see me," he said. "Really see me. Not what you left behind, but what I am now. What we are." She remained still, eyes fixed on him, but her body shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. "You think we can reconcile," she said. "That everything can be stitched together with presence and pursuit. But time has a way of eroding more than it repairs." "I know that," he said. "But if we never try, what have we left? Nothing. Only absence. Only silence." Mara exhaled, letting the wind carry her words. "Silence is sometimes the only truth," she said. "Everything else, words, steps, promises, are fragile, temporary. And yet, here you are, defying it." Nathan felt the edge of desperation sharpen. "I defy it because I cannot accept its permanence. Because I cannot accept losing you twice. Once to distance, once to memory." She did not respond immediately. The cliffs stretched behind them, the sea pounding below. The horizon glowed faintly in the last traces of daylight. "You were always reckless," she said at last. "Following, demanding, pressing. Did you ever think I might not want to be found?" "I did," he admitted. "But I hoped. And hoping brought me here." "You hope too much," she said. And yet, here you are. That is dangerous. Dangerous or not, he said. I am here. She looked away for a moment, scanning the cliffs, the sea, the twilight fading into night. Then she returned her gaze to him. I thought I left all of this behind, she said. The cliffs, the pursuit, the questions. But you bring it all back. I bring it back because it never left, he said. It lived inside me, every day, every hour, waiting for the chance to follow you. They moved to the edge of the plateau, the wind tearing at their coats, the cliffs stretching dizzyingly below. The sound of the sea was louder here, as if the waves themselves demanded their attention. Nathan studied her face, the curve of her jaw, the tension in her shoulders. You don't know what I've done since you left, she said quietly. The choices I've made, the paths I've walked. You have no right to demand clarity. I don't demand it, he said. I seek it. And if seeking brings me here, to this plateau, to this moment, I accept the risk. Her lips pressed together. Risk, she echoed. Always with you. Risk and recklessness. Sometimes I admire it. Sometimes I resent it. Then admire it now, he said softly. Resent it later. I will wait. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of herbs and the faint tang of smoke. Mara closed her eyes briefly, letting the moment wash over her. Nathan stepped closer, careful, measured, aware that any misstep could send them both tumbling over the edge, literally and metaphorically. You've changed, she said. Or maybe I have. Or maybe we are both the same, just different in distance. I am here, he said. That is change enough. Or proof enough. She opened her eyes, the faintest crack of vulnerability in their depths. I did not expect you to come all this way. To cross oceans, cliffs, villages. I did not expect you to endure. I endure because it matters, he said. You matter. Her gaze dropped to the horizon, where stars began to appear one by one. You always find a way to make words matter, she said softly. Even when the sea, the cliffs, and time themselves try to erase them. I follow words, traces, shadows, he said. I follow you. For a long moment, neither moved. The wind tore at their hair, the cliffs groaned beneath them, the sea hammered the rocks below. The night was complete, the horizon infinite. Nathan felt a tension coiled in his chest, a mixture of fear, hope, and desire. He could not see what tomorrow would bring. He could only act in this moment. He extended his hand. Come with me, he said. She looked at it, then at him. I cannot, she said. Not yet. But I am here. And this is enough for now. Enough, he echoed. For now, she said. We cannot undo the past. We cannot predict the future. But for now, we are here. And that is all that matters. You claim authority, she said to the watchers. But you do not understand endurance. You do not understand pursuit. You cannot claim what is meant to be earned. You watch from shadows, but the truth is not yours to seize. Nathan followed her lead, standing tall beside her. Every step we have taken, he said, voice firm. Every risk, every trace, every heartbeat belongs to us. Not to you, and not to fear. The wind tore through the plateau, whipping their hair across faces, tossing scarves, tearing at coat edges. The watchers did not move. They understood the truth of her words. And yet, their presence remained a threat, a shadow of vigilance and warning. Mara turned to Nathan. Step carefully now, she said. The cliffs will demand vigilance. The sea will demand endurance. And we must face both and survive. I understand, Nathan said. And I follow. Always. She nodded, a flicker of relief passing over her features. Then witness, she said, and endure. And remember, truth is not merely found. It is earned, step by step, trace by trace, breath by breath. For the next hour, they moved along jagged ledges, loose stones skittering beneath boots. The watchers followed at a distance, silent but vigilant. The Mediterranean below roared, unforgiving, relentless. The cliffs rose above, jagged, imposing, sacred. Every step was a negotiation with risk, memory, and desire. Nathan felt the pulse of the chase in every fiber of his being. He had followed Mara through storms, cliffs, coves, and pursuit. He had endured threats, ambiguity, and danger. And now, at the edge of confrontation, he understood what it meant to follow fully, to risk entirely, to pursue truth uncompromisingly. They reached the edge of a hidden cove, where water lapped violently against jagged rocks. Mara paused, turning to Nathan. This is the final fragment for today, she said. Step carefully. Observe. Endure. And perhaps understand. Nathan knelt, examining carved stones, remnants of paint, herbs placed in deliberate patterns. Each mark carried meaning, warning, and revelation. Each was a piece of the puzzle that Mara had followed alone for years. You see it? She asked softly. I see it, he said. And I understand the risk. And I accept it. Whatever it demands, I follow. The watchers had not abandoned them. Shadows moved along cliffs, silent but intent. Nathan glanced up. They are patient, he said quietly. Yes, Mara said. But we are patient, too. And enduring. And vigilant. And that makes the difference. Nathan exhaled slowly, feeling the wind tear at his hair, coat, scarf. Step by step, trace by trace, breath by breath, he had followed. And now, he would witness, endure, and understand. Mara's hand brushed his lightly. Not surrender. Not conquest. Presence. Connection forged in pursuit, risk, and revelation. We move forward, he asked. For now, she said. Step by step. Trace by trace. Always forward. The Mediterranean cliffs stretched before them, wild, unforgiving, sacred. Waves crashed violently below, wind tore through the plateau. Nathan felt alive, tethered to pursuit, to presence, to truth. The watchers remained, distant but persistent, shadows on the cliffs, witnesses and threat alike. And Nathan and Mara endured, together, at the edge of danger and revelation. Nathan let his hand fall slowly to his side. The wind tore at his coat, the cliffs yawned below, the sea roared like a warning. And yet, the moment held them, suspended between pursuit and surrender, between past and possibility. She stepped back into the house. Nathan remained on the plateau, watching the door close, watching the smoke curl from the chimney. He felt both relief and frustration, satisfaction and yearning. The chase was not over. It would never be over. And yet, there was a fragile beauty in the pause, in the quiet recognition that they existed in the same space, at the same time, with the same unspoken history. He turned to the cliffs, the path winding back to the village below. Stars shimmered overhead, indifferent and eternal. Nathan knew the search would continue. He knew he would follow, step by step, trace by trace. But for tonight, for this fragile night, he could simply watch and wait and breathe. The wind carried the faint scent of herbs and salt, the echo of her voice, the memory of her presence. Nathan closed his eyes and let it fill him. Every nerve, every memory, every step forward in the chase vibrated with tension, promise, and the endless possibility of connection. Hours later, he descended to the village, shadows folding him into narrow streets. Lanterns flickered in windows. Dogs barked somewhere in the distance. The sea murmured beneath the cliffs. Nathan paused at a fountain, tracing the curve of the stone with his fingers. Mara's presence lingered like smoke in the air, intangible, persistent, unreachable. He felt the weight of longing, the ache of pursuit, the thrill of proximity. And he knew this. The Mediterranean night had not ended their chase. It had merely intensified it. He returned to the edge of the cliffs, looking back toward the house on the plateau. Smoke still curled from the chimney. The stars shone cold and sharp above. Nathan exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He would follow, step by step, word by word, until the sea itself remembered, or until it did not. The night held him. The cliffs held him. The memory of her held him. And somewhere, not far, Mara moved. Chapter 6. Traces in the Stone. Nathan awoke before dawn. The village below the plateau was quiet, streets empty except for a lone dog pacing near a fountain. The stars faded into pale blue as light crept across the cliffs. He wrapped his coat tight and set out, tracing the paths Mara had walked the day before. Each step was deliberate, careful, reverent, as if he were moving through both memory and present reality at once. He carried her note in his breast pocket, folded small, edges frayed. It was a compass he could not read fully, yet it guided him. You were right. The sea remembers nothing. But I do. Every word burned, echoing with accusation and invitation alike. Nathan felt the pulse of the cliffs, the wind carrying salt, herbs, and the faint hint of smoke from distant chimneys. He knew she had moved ahead, leaving only subtle traces, like a scent barely perceptible on stone. The narrow path twisted between rocks and scrub, white stones underfoot warming in the rising sun. Nathan paused at the first bend. Footprints, hers, crossed the dust. He crouched, tracing the edges with his boot. They were faint but deliberate, as if she wanted them seen, yet not fully discovered. He followed them. Every step took him closer to a small cove, hidden from the village above, where water shimmered green and gold in the early light. A boat rested pulled ashore. Its wood smelled of salt and seaweed. Someone had been here. He was certain of it. "Hello," he called softly. His voice carried only a little, swallowed by the cliffs. No answer. Only the lapping of waves and the cry of a distant gull. Nathan scanned the rocks and found small signs. A broken twig here, a smear of paint on a stone there, the faintest imprint of a hand where someone had braced against the cliffside. He knew Mara had passed this way. Every subtle mark was both message and test. He thought of the old woman at the previous cove, the warning in her eyes. Nathan had followed before, and he would follow again. But now the stakes were sharper. Mara's silence was no longer passive, it was deliberate. She wanted him to earn each step. He climbed the last stretch to the plateau above the cove. The house she had occupied the day before was empty. Smoke still trailed faintly from the chimney, but the door was ajar, the interior dark. Inside, the house was spare but intimate. A table, a few chairs, a narrow bed, shelves of books and jars. Everything smelled of smoke, salt, and faint herbs. Nathan moved slowly, breathing carefully. Nothing had been taken. Nothing had been disturbed. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. A note lay on the table, folded in careful layers. Nathan picked it up. Her handwriting, neat, deliberate, familiar. "Follow the cliffs. Follow the water. Every turn will matter. Look where I looked, feel what I felt. But do not expect me at the end. I will be somewhere beyond sight, waiting or not. Decide what that means to you." Nathan folded it slowly, letting her words sink. Every line was a challenge. Every word was a tether pulling him forward, into a chase he could not resist. He stepped back outside. The wind had picked up, carrying spray from waves crashing against cliffs below. Nathan looked down. The cove shimmered with green light, stones glinting wet. He considered the path down. It was narrow, slippery, dangerous. But he had no choice. Every instinct, every memory of Mara, every beat of his heart demanded that he continue. He descended carefully, boots gripping stone, hands brushing rough edges. The sea roared below, unrelenting, furious in its rhythm. He paused to rest, letting the sound fill him, steady him, sharpen him. Somewhere here, she had walked. Somewhere here, she had paused, looked back, and wondered if he would follow. At the base of the cliffs, the cove opened into a narrow inlet. Small boats rested tied to jagged rocks. A fisherman appeared on the far side, sun darkening his skin, hands rough from years of work. He watched Nathan closely. "You're following her," the fisherman said in clipped tones. "Few understand what they chase." "I'm trying," Nathan said. "I need to know why." The man studied him, eyes narrowing. "She leaves pieces, not the whole. You will find what she intends to show, but beware the rest." Nathan nodded, sensing both warning and confirmation. He continued along the rocky shoreline, scanning for more signs, more traces, anything Mara had left behind. A small alcove opened into a hidden cave. Water pooled inside, calm, reflecting sunlight that pierced a crack above. Nathan stepped carefully, noticing tiny handprints on the stone, scratches where someone had leaned. Mara had been here. He could feel her presence like a ghost. He knelt, examining the walls. Marks in the stone suggested she had written or traced symbols, something meant to guide, or perhaps to taunt. Every line was deliberate. Every sign carried meaning. Nathan's pulse quickened. "Why do you do this?" he muttered. "Why make me chase you?" The wind whispered through the cave as if answering. He felt her presence in every shadow, every ripple on the water. Emerging from the cave, Nathan followed the coastline. The cliffs grew taller, more jagged, the path barely visible. He moved with care, heart pounding, every step a negotiation with gravity, stone, and fear. The sun climbed high, casting harsh light, highlighting every contour of the rocks, every crevice where someone could hide or vanish. And then he saw her. Mara stood on a rock farther along the cliffs, her back to him, hair loose, scarf flapping in the wind. She looked out at the water. She did not move immediately when he called her name. "Mara," he shouted. She turned slowly. Her eyes held calm and Storm together, steady and impossible. "You followed," she said, voice low, deliberate. "I did," he said. "I followed every trace." Her gaze shifted, studying him, measuring. "And what do you seek?" "I seek you," he said. "I seek understanding. I seek truth. I seek the reason you left and the reason you let me follow." She laughed softly, wind carrying the sound. "Truth?" she asked. "You think truth is something you can find?" "Truth is in the walking, in the searching. Every step, every choice, every heartbeat along the cliffs. That is the truth." Nathan moved closer. "Then show me," he said. "Let me share it with you." She hesitated, the wind tossing her hair. "You risk much," she said. "Every step brings danger. The cliffs, the water, the fall. Do you understand?" "I understand," he said. "And I accept it." She studied him, then slowly extended her hand. "Then follow carefully," she said. He did. Step by step, over stones slick with sea spray, over narrow ledges, over paths that tested both courage and balance. Every movement carried the weight of the chase. Every glance at her reinforced it. The cliffs stretched impossibly high above them. The sea roared far below. Nathan felt alive in a way he had never known. Alert, tense, attuned to every sound, every shadow, every motion. The chase had become the proof of existence, of connection, of persistence. They reached a small plateau overlooking the sea, cliffs jagged, waves crashing below. Mara paused. "This is where I stop," she said. "I will not go further today." Nathan nodded, breathing hard, heart still racing. "Then stay," he said. "For now, let me be here. Let me witness this place, you, everything." She looked out at the horizon, where the sun glinted off the waves, painting gold across green. "For now," she said softly. "But do not mistake this for surrender. Do not mistake presence for certainty. I am not yours to hold." "I know," he said. "And yet, I follow. Because you matter. And the pursuit itself matters." She turned toward him, eyes reflecting sea and sky, storm and calm. "Then follow," she said. "But remember, every step is a choice. And every choice has a consequence." Nathan nodded, the weight of her words settling, sharpening, guiding. The Mediterranean cliffs stretched before him, vast, perilous, beautiful. He would follow her wherever she led, step by step, trace by trace, until the sea itself remembered, or until it did not. The wind carried salt and herbs, and somewhere in the distance, the cry of a gull. Nathan watched Mara move along the cliffs, confident, deliberate, untouchable yet present. He felt the tension coil inside him, electric, unrelenting. He would follow her, always, through cliffs, coves, alleys, villages, across sea and sky, through memory and shadow, through the unspoken words that bound them. The chase had become life. The pursuit had become meaning. And somewhere, beyond sight, Mara moved, waiting, daring, testing him, teaching him, existing in a truth he could only approach but never fully grasp. Nathan took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and moved forward. Step by step, trace by trace, the cliffs and the sea and the night his witnesses. Chapter 7, Secrets in the Salt. Nathan awoke before the first light of dawn, the cliffs sharp and jagged in the silver-gray haze. The sea far below roared, relentless, unyielding, a rhythm that had haunted him since the Atlantic harbor. He rose silently, stretching, boots scraping stone. Every nerve was taut. He carried Mara's latest note folded in his coat pocket, edges frayed from repeated reading. "Step carefully. Watch the water, the cliffs, the shadows. I am somewhere ahead, waiting or not. Decide which is truth." Nathan folded it again, careful not to crease it further. She left messages like breadcrumbs, yet each one was deliberate, ambiguous, a riddle, a warning. He didn't follow blindly. He followed deliberately, painfully, almost ceremoniously. The path along the cliffs was treacherous. Stones were slick with night dew. Wind gusted unpredictably, tearing at his coat and hair. Every step was a negotiation with gravity, with fear, with memory. He thought of Mara, her eyes catching sunlight and storm, the way her voice could be both warmth and warning. And then he saw a clue. A small cairn of stones, balanced with care, perched on a rock overlooking a cove below. Nathan crouched, tracing the edges with fingers. A line of paint marked the lowest stone, faint, blue-green, like sea foam. She had been here. She had marked it for him to find. He followed the subtle trail, descending carefully, the cove below shimmering with green light. Waves struck jagged rocks, spray catching the sun in sparkling arcs. A small boat rested tied to a rock, paint peeling, wood soaked with salt. The wind carried faint herb scents, smoke, and something else, something human, deliberate. A figure emerged from the shadows of the rocks. Mara. Her coat flapped in the wind, hair loose. She did not smile. She did not approach. She simply stood, a figure of calm and storm, watching him. "You found me," she said, voice low, precise. "I did," Nathan said. "Every trace, every clue, every stone, every footprint." She tilted her head. "And now what?" "I want to understand," he said. "I need to understand why you left, why you led me here, why all of this matters." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Understanding is a luxury, one you are not entitled to. You follow, yes, but do you grasp the cost? "I will pay it," he said. She studied him for a long moment, then finally spoke. "Cost is not always measured in steps or time. Sometimes it is measured in memory, in truth, in what you cannot change." Nathan stepped closer. "Then let me see it. Let me know it. I can bear what it demands." She nodded, just slightly, then led him along a narrow path that hugged the cliffs. The path was jagged, the wind tearing at their coats, the sea far below roaring like a beast. Every step felt both precarious and sacred. Mara moved deliberately, confident, untouchable yet human, as if testing him, daring him, guiding him. "You always chase what you cannot hold," she said suddenly. "I chase what matters," Nathan said. "And yet, you do not know why," she said. "I am learning," he said. She glanced at him. Learning can be dangerous. They reached a hidden plateau. The sea stretched below, green and deep. Sunlight caught the spray from waves, glittering like shards of glass. Mara paused, looking out at the horizon. Nathan studied her, the curve of her jaw, the tension in her shoulders. Every movement was deliberate, measured, a language of shadows and light. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why this chase?" She turned slightly, eyes reflecting water and sky. "Because you notice. Because you follow. Because you are willing to risk everything. And yet, still, you hope." Nathan stepped closer. "I do not hope blindly. I follow because I cannot do otherwise. Because to turn away would be to forget every moment we had, every word, every step, every glance." She laughed softly. "You dramatize even in pursuit. Even in caution, you dramatize. Do you think that makes you noble?" "No," he said, "but it makes me persistent. And persistence is the only truth I know." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of herbs, smoke, salt, and the faintest trace of something burned. Mara glanced at him, then at the horizon. "There is more," she said. "More than you see, more than you can follow. I cannot take you further yet, but you will know, if you pay attention." Nathan nodded. "I will pay attention. I have no other choice." She studied him, and for a moment, vulnerability flickered in her eyes. "Then see this," she said. "Watch carefully. Remember every detail. The cliffs, the path, the water, the stones. They will guide you even when I am gone." Nathan followed her along a narrow ledge, precarious above crashing waves. Each step demanded concentration, yet he felt alive in a way he had never known. The chase was not merely pursuit. It was communion, a dialogue of presence, of memory, of desire. "You know," she said, "the cliffs are unforgiving. One slip, one misstep, and all is lost." "I know," he said, "and yet I continue. Because the risk is worth the truth." She glanced at him, a faint smile brushing her lips. "Truth is not always what you expect. Sometimes it is jagged, sharp, and bleeding. Are you ready for that?" "I am," he said. They reached a small cove, hidden, secreted from the village above. The water lapped gently against stones. A boat rested nearby, smaller than the others, tied carefully with fraying rope. Mara knelt briefly, brushing her fingers over the paint on a rock, then turned to Nathan. "This is where I leave more than breadcrumbs," she said. "Where I leave pieces of myself, pieces of the truth. Follow them." but do not expect them to lead you safely. Nathan nodded, kneeling beside her, examining the markings, small scratches in stone, subtle patterns in sand, remnants of herbs carefully placed. Each sign deliberate, cryptic, a code, a map, a confession. Why all this? He asked. Why not meet me outright? Because truth cannot be given freely, she said. It must be earned, experienced, survived. Only then does it matter. They rose together, standing on the edge of the cove. The cliffs stretched endlessly behind, the sea roaring below. Nathan studied her face, every nuance, every shadow, every flicker of movement. He felt the weight of her secrets pressing, shaping, guiding him. You are relentless, she said softly. I cannot deny it. I cannot resent it. And yet, he asked, and yet, the path is mine as much as yours. You follow, but do not own it. You follow, but the cliffs, the water, the wind, they decide as much as you do. Are you ready for that? I am, he said. Her eyes softened. Then follow, she said. Not blindly, not recklessly, carefully, persistently. And perhaps, eventually, you will understand. Nathan traced her movements along the cliffs, step by step, absorbing every detail, every rhythm, every pattern. Mara moved deliberately, almost ritualistically, leaving traces that were both guide and test. Each mark, each placement, each gesture was a piece of the puzzle. He followed, alert, tense, alive, aware of every shift in wind, light, and shadow. You chase shadows, she said quietly. But sometimes shadows are the only way to see truth. Are you ready to walk among them? I am, he said. The sun dipped toward the horizon, turning sea and cliffs to gold and crimson. Nathan followed her to the edge of a plateau overlooking a jagged inlet. Waves struck rocks violently, spray rising like ghosts. Mara paused, looking out at the horizon, her back to him. This is where I stop, she said. Not because you will not follow, but because some truths cannot be approached directly. You will understand only what you are ready to bear. Nathan felt the weight of her words, the tension in his chest, the pulse in his veins. He nodded. I will wait. I will endure. I will follow. And perhaps, she said softly, you will find more than you sought. Or perhaps you will find only yourself. The wind tore at them. The sea roared below. The cliffs rose impossibly above. Nathan watched her, studied her, breathed her presence into himself. The Mediterranean stretched endlessly, wild, dangerous, beautiful, holding secrets in its salt and stone. He would follow, step by step, trace by trace, through cliffs, coves, alleys, memory, and shadow, through ambiguity and revelation, through pursuit and confession. And somewhere ahead, Mara moved, waiting, testing, teaching, daring him to see beyond what he thought he knew. Nathan squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and stepped forward into both risk and possibility. Chapter 8. The Edge of Truth. Nathan awoke to the sound of the wind tearing across the cliffs. The Mediterranean was restless, waves crashing violently against the jagged rocks below. The sky above was streaked with pale gold, hinting at the day's approach. His boots dug into the stone as he moved along the narrow plateau, every step deliberate, careful. Mara was ahead, always just out of reach. But today, he sensed, the distance would shrink. The path narrowed as it wound along the cliffside. Loose stones skittered beneath his feet. The wind tugged at his coat, his hair, his scarf. Every sense was alert. The chase had become instinct, memory, and obsession intertwined. Ahead, Mara stood at the edge of a promontory, looking out over the sea. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She did not turn. She did not call. She simply waited, presence anchored against the storm of waves below. Nathan, she said, without looking, voice carried by the wind. You followed far enough. But are you ready to know? I am, he said, though the words felt fragile against the roar of the sea. You may not like what you find, she said. And the cliffs do not forgive hesitation. He stepped closer, careful with each motion, boots pressing into stone worn smooth by time and tide. I have risked everything already. I can bear whatever comes next. She turned then, eyes sharp and distant. Do you understand what you chase? Not me, not memory, not longing, but truth. And truth is more dangerous than absence. I understand that, he said. And I follow anyway. Her lips curved faintly, almost approvingly. Then listen, she said, and do not interrupt. Nathan stayed silent, heart hammering, ears straining to catch her words above the wind and waves. I left because I had to, she said. Not because I did not care, not because I wanted you to chase me, but because the truth I carry is not safe. Not for me, not for anyone. The paths I choose, the places I walk, they are dictated by necessity, by fear, by the past I cannot escape. You follow, and I cannot stop you. But now you will see what I meant. Nathan felt a knot tighten in his chest. What is it? He asked, voice low. She gestured toward the cliff edge. Down there, where the rocks meet the sea, where the water pounds endlessly against stone. That place holds the answers, but only if you are willing to risk everything to see it. I will, he said immediately. They descended together, the cliffs treacherous, every step a negotiation with gravity. Loose stones, jagged edges, spray from the waves, all demanded vigilance. Nathan felt his pulse synchronize with the rhythm of the sea, each beat a tether to Mara, to the chase, to the truth she had led him to. At the base, the rocks opened into a small inlet, waves crashing violently against the stone. Mara knelt, brushing her fingers across marks carved into the rock, initials, symbols, lines, patterns. A map, a message, evidence of presence and absence intertwined. This is where it began, she said softly, where the secret I carry first became real, where the risk started. Nathan knelt beside her, tracing the carvings. They were precise, deliberate, impossible to ignore. What does it mean? He asked. It means, she said, voice low, that everything you followed, every step, every trace, every heartbeat, was part of a puzzle I could not solve alone. And yet, here you are. He looked at her, searching, measuring. You trusted me enough to follow. But you didn't tell me. Why? Because some truths are heavier than words, she said. And some paths must be walked to be understood. You may survive the cliffs, but can you survive the weight of what I carry? I will, he said firmly. She studied him, eyes flickering with emotion. Perhaps, she said. Perhaps. But even knowing that, the choice is yours. To follow, to bear, to risk, or to turn back. Nathan did not hesitate. I follow. Always. They spent hours tracing the carvings, deciphering symbols, following patterns that led them across jagged rocks, through hidden crevices, and along narrow ledges. The Mediterranean sun climbed, burned, and began to dip toward horizon again, turning water to molten gold and cliffs to bronze. Every movement, every glance, every step was charged, taut, electric. Finally, they reached a cavern, hidden from view, carved naturally by centuries of wind and water. Inside, the air was damp, heavy with salt and the faint scent of herbs Mara had left as markers. This, she said, is where the truth lies. And yet, she paused, you may not like it, and it may not like you. Nathan stepped inside, boots wet, heart racing. Every shadow seemed alive. Every whisper of wind echoed like voices long gone. He studied her. I am ready, he said. The cavern opened onto a small platform above the water. Mara led him to the edge. Below, partially submerged rocks formed shapes, symbols, traces, remnants of something hidden. Small notes, carved stones, remnants of her past carefully placed to communicate what could not be spoken. I left pieces, she said. Pieces of the past, pieces of me, pieces of what cannot be spoken aloud. You follow them, interpret them, and perhaps you understand. But the full weight, she exhaled sharply, eyes distant, may break you. Nathan knelt, examining the carvings. A sequence of dates, initials, names, locations, evidence of journeys, encounters, decisions made in shadow, in solitude, in fear. You carried this alone? He asked. Yes, she said, because I had to, and because some things must remain hidden until they find the right witness. And now I am that witness. You chose to be, she said. You followed. You risked. You endured. That is all the truth requires. The wind tore through the cavern, spray from waves below lashing their faces. Nathan looked at her, at the evidence, at the cliffside, at the sea. Everything felt fragile, sacred, electric. Why leave me here? He asked. Why not keep it hidden? Because truth without witness is just memory, she said. and I cannot live in memory alone. I needed someone to follow, to see, to endure. Someone to bear it with me, even if only for a moment. Nathan rose, eyes locking with hers. Then I am here. I will bear it. With you. She hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability passing across her face. You may not survive it, she said softly. Or perhaps you will survive, but changed. Different. And still, you choose this path. I choose, he said, because you matter. And because the pursuit itself has become truth. For a long moment, they stood side by side, the Mediterranean roaring below, the cliffs pressing in, the sky wide and indifferent. Nathan felt every nerve, every memory, every step of the chase distilled into this moment. Precarious, sacred, alive. She touched his arm briefly. Then see it, she whispered. See what has been hidden. And perhaps you will understand why I left, why I moved, why I chose these cliffs, these paths, these traces. Nathan stepped closer to the edge, looking down at the water, at the symbols carved in stone, at the traces she had left across cliffs, coves, villages. He traced each with fingers and eyes, absorbing, interpreting, feeling. The truth was jagged, sharp, bleeding into memory and risk. And now you see, she said. Now you see what I carry. And what you carry, by following, by enduring, by witnessing, by loving. Nathan looked at her. The wind whipped hair into her eyes. The sea roared beneath. The cliffs rose impossibly high. And yet, in that moment, he understood more than words could say. He reached for her hand. She let him take it, fingers entwining. Not surrender, not conquest, but recognition, presence, connection forged in pursuit, risk, and revelation. We move forward together, he asked. For now, she said. And step by step, trace by trace, we will see where the cliffs, the sea, and the truth take us. Nathan nodded. Step by step. Always. The sun dipped below the horizon, turning the Mediterranean into molten gold and violet. Waves struck the rocks violently, yet the cavern felt sacred, suspended, eternal. Nathan and Mara stood side by side, presence and pursuit reconciled, at least for this moment, facing both the cliffs and the sea. The chase had reached its truth. But the journey, like the sea, was endless, vast, unpredictable, alive. Nathan squeezed her hand, eyes never leaving hers. We are here, together. For now, she said. The cliffs held them. The sea roared. The wind tore through them. And somewhere beyond sight, the horizon promised both danger and revelation, risk and intimacy, pursuit and truth. Nathan exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Step by step, trace by trace, he would follow. Not blindly, but fully, willingly, with heart, mind, and presence. The Mediterranean night descended, stars blinking into existence, indifferent and eternal. Nathan and Mara stood at the edge, the chase and the truth intertwining, suspended between peril and possibility. Chapter 9. Shadows over the Mediterranean. Nathan woke to the roar of waves and the tang of salt in the air. Dawn had not yet broken fully, but the cliffs were visible in the faint gray light. The wind tore at his coat, his hair carrying the scent of seaweed, herbs, and smoke from a distant fire. He rose carefully, boots crunching against stone. Mara was already moving, lithe, deliberate, tracing the edge of the cliffs. Every movement carried intention. Every glance held calculation. You woke early, she said without turning. Her voice carried over the wind, soft but commanding. I couldn't sleep, Nathan said. Too much waiting, too much thinking. You always think too much, she said. And yet, thinking is what brings you here. I follow because it matters, he said. Every step, every trace, every risk, it all matters. She paused, looking at him briefly. Then you must see something today, something I cannot show lightly. But it carries danger. I can handle it, he said. Her eyes flickered. Perhaps, she said. Or perhaps you will wish you had never followed. They walked along the cliffs in silence for a while, the wind tearing at their scarves and coats. Nathan noticed subtle signs Mara had left. Small carvings, displaced stones, faint traces of paint. Each mark was a guide, a test, a warning. Suddenly, the wind shifted. Nathan caught a movement far below, a shadow slipping among the rocks. almost invisible against the spray of waves. He squinted. "Did you see that?" he asked. Mara's eyes narrowed. "Yes. They are watching." "Watching? Who?" "People who should not know we are here," she said. "And yet, someone always does." Nathan felt the weight of her words, heavy as the sea spray. "What do we do?" "Continue," she said. "And be careful. Every step counts now. One misstep, and the cliffs will not forgive." They moved quickly, carefully, along a narrow ledge. Loose stones skittered beneath their boots. The wind tore at their coats, threatening to throw them off balance. Nathan's pulse raced, not from the climb, but from the sense of unseen eyes tracking them, waiting, calculating. They reached a hidden cove, water lapping violently against jagged rocks. Small boats rested, some tied to rocks, others half submerged. The smell of salt, herbs, and smoke was strong here. Mara led him to a cave hidden behind a rock arch. "This is where we stop for now," she said, "and where I reveal what must be revealed. But be ready. This may change everything." Nathan nodded. "I am ready." She stepped inside first, and Nathan followed. The cave was dim, damp, and smelled of sea and earth. Light filtered in through cracks above, painting patterns on the stones. Mara gestured to a series of carvings and scattered notes on the cave floor. "These are fragments," she said. "Pieces of the past I cannot speak aloud. Pieces that must be understood, interpreted, survived." Nathan knelt, examining them carefully. Symbols, initials, dates, names, and places. Evidence of encounters, decisions, and risks she had taken alone. Every mark carried meaning. Every mark carried danger. "Why?" he asked. "Why carry this alone? Why not tell me?" "Because," she said, "some truths cannot be spoken until they are witnessed under risk. You follow, yes. You endure, yes. But you also learn. And that is why you are here." A sudden noise echoed from outside. Rocks shifting, a shout, indistinct but urgent. Nathan and Mara froze. "They are close," Mara whispered. "Too close." "Who are they?" Nathan asked. "People who should not see these traces," she said. "And yet, they always do." Before Nathan could respond, shadows moved at the cave entrance. Two figures emerged, rough and deliberate, eyes fixed on them. One stepped forward. "You shouldn't be here," the taller one said. "Step away from the cliff." Mara's expression hardened. "We belong here," she said calmly. "And we will leave only when we choose." Nathan felt the tension coil in his chest. The wind tore through the cave entrance. The figures hesitated, then stepped closer. "Who are you?" Nathan demanded, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "We are watchers," the man said. "People who ensure that some secrets remain buried. You are trespassing where you do not belong." Mara's eyes flashed. "I've carried these secrets for years," she said. "I decide who knows. I decide who follows. And I decide who survives." The shorter figure laughed softly. "You cannot decide what is hidden forever. Someone always notices. Someone always follows." Nathan stepped forward, hand brushing Mara's. "We are not leaving," he said. "We follow. We endure. And we will see the truth." The taller figure's gaze shifted to Nathan. "And you?" he said. "Why follow? Why risk cliffs, sea, storms, memory, and danger?" "Because it matters," Nathan said. "Because presence matters. Because pursuit is the only proof of truth." For a long moment, silence hung in the cave, punctuated by the roar of the sea below. Then Mara stepped forward, closer to Nathan. "They will not harm us today," she said. "But the path ahead is not safe. The cliffs, the sea, the wind, they are impartial. And we cannot rely on anyone but ourselves." Nathan nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. "We continue," he said, "step by step, trace by trace. Always forward." "Always forward," she echoed. They left the cave, moving along a ledge that narrowed further, cliffs rising above, waves crashing violently below. Every step demanded focus. Every glance held risk. Nathan could feel the watchers at a distance, shadows among rocks and scrub. Yet he trusted Mara implicitly. "Why risk them?" he asked quietly. "Because some truths cannot remain hidden," she said. "Because risk defines meaning. Because pursuit creates proof." Nathan exhaled, steadying himself. "Then let us pursue, carefully, persistently, and without faltering." The sun climbed higher, glinting off waves. turning the Mediterranean into molten green and gold. Nathan and Mara moved in synchrony, careful, deliberate, attuned to wind, stone, and shadow. Every sense was alive. Every heartbeat was tethered to the other. Suddenly, Mara stopped. "Here," she said, voice low. "This is the next fragment. But beware. The cliffs and the sea and the watchers will test you now." Nathan knelt, examining carved stones, traces of paint, notes left in secret. Every piece was deliberate. Every piece carried warning. Every piece carried revelation. "Do you see it?" she asked. "Do you understand what is at stake?" "I see it," Nathan said. "And I accept it. Whatever it takes, whatever the cost, I follow." Shadows shifted again along the cliffs. The watchers had not abandoned pursuit. Nathan glanced up, wind in his face, heart pounding. "They are close," he whispered. "They will not reach us yet," Mara said calmly. "But you must remain alert. One slip, one distraction, one misstep, and it will be over." Nathan's gaze returned to the carvings, to the traces, to Mara. "Then I am ready," he said. Mara's eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability passing through her expression. "Then endure," she said. "Endure and witness. And perhaps you will survive. Or perhaps you will understand." Nathan exhaled slowly, gripping the cliff edge. Step by step, trace by trace, he would continue. Presence, pursuit, and risk intertwined. Every moment was proof, every breath a testament, every glance a tether. The Mediterranean cliffs stretched before them, wild, unforgiving, sacred. Nathan felt alive in a way he had never known. Every sense sharpened, every memory coiled with tension. Mara moved forward, deliberate, untouchable, guiding, daring, teaching. Nathan followed, willingly, fully, heart and mind tethered to the chase, to the truth, to her. And the watchers remained, distant but persistent, shadows over the cliffs, witnesses and threat alike. Chapter 10, Confrontation at the Edge. The sun rose slow and low over the Mediterranean, painting cliffs and sea in molten gold and violet. Nathan moved along the narrow ledge with Mara, wind tearing at scarves and coats, salt spray stinging his skin. Every sense was alive. Every step required focus. The path ahead narrowed sharply, cliffs rising impossibly above, waves crashing violently below. Mara walked ahead, deliberate, confident, untouchable. Nathan followed, heartbeat steady, pulse synced to the rhythm of the sea. Behind them, he knew, the watchers drew closer. "They will confront us," Mara said softly. Her voice carried over the wind, calm yet resolute. Nathan nodded. "Then we face them. Together." She glanced back at him, eyes sharp. "Together, yes. But not as equals. Not yet. You follow. Yes, but the cliffs and the sea will decide more than either of us can." "I understand," he said. The wind tore through the ledge, tugging at coat and hair. Nathan tightened his grip, careful with each step, aware of both Mara and the abyss below. Ahead, shadows moved among jagged rocks. Two figures emerged clearly now, the watchers. Their eyes were dark, their movement precise, deliberate. They did not speak immediately, as if measuring, waiting for Nathan and Mara to make the first move. Mara stopped. "They are here," she said. "And yet, this is not the end. Only another test." Nathan's hands clenched. "What do they want?" "To stop us. To claim what should remain hidden. To punish curiosity," she said. "But we are not theirs to command." The taller watcher stepped forward. "You should have turned back," he said. "The cliffs, the sea, the risks, they are not yours to bear. Step aside." Mara's gaze hardened. "We will step aside only if we choose. And that choice is not yours to make." Nathan swallowed, heart racing. The wind tore through the ledge, tossing hair across faces, whipping coats against stone. He took a deliberate step closer to Mara. "We follow, step by step, trace by trace, always forward. And you understand the cost?" Mara asked softly. "I do," he said. "Whatever it demands, I follow." The watchers exchanged a glance. The shorter one laughed softly, a sound devoid of humor. "Fools," he said. "You risk death for secrets not meant to be known." Mara's eyes flashed. "Then we accept the risk. And we endure. And if the cliffs claim us, then at least we lived knowing the truth." Nathan felt the tension coil in his chest, a spring ready to snap. He had followed Mara through cliffs, coves, storms, memory, and risk. He would not turn away now. The taller watcher advanced. "Step away from the cliff," he said. "Do not tempt fate." Mara took a deliberate step forward, closer to the edge. "We tempt nothing," she said. "We are guided by choice, by truth, by presence. And we move as we must." Nathan followed, close behind. "Every step is ours," he said. "Every choice, every risk, every heartbeat. We endure together." The wind screamed through the cliffs. Waves crashed violently below, sending spray high into the air. The watchers hesitated, measuring. The shorter watcher raised a hand. "You do not understand what is at stake," he said. "The path you follow is fraught. One misstep, and—" He let the sentence hang, threat unspoken but heavy. "I understand more than you know," Nathan said firmly. "And I will not falter." Mara placed a hand lightly on Nathan's arm. "Trust me," she said. "The cliffs will test you. The sea will test you. But together, we endure." They moved forward, navigating the narrow ledge. Loose stones skittered beneath boots. The wind tore at hair, scarf, coat, skin. Every movement required focus, precision, presence. The watchers followed, careful, calculated, unwilling to intervene directly. Yet their intent was clear. Nathan and Mara reached a small plateau, jagged rocks rising like broken teeth around them. Waves crashed below, violent, relentless. Mara turned, facing the watchers directly. "If you want to stop us," she said, voice calm and unwavering, "then you must face what we have endured. You must step into the cliffs, into the wind, into the pursuit. Only then can you claim what you seek." The taller watcher hesitated, then glanced at the other. "This is madness," he said. "Madness," Mara said, "is in waiting passively. Courage is in moving forward despite risk. Choice is in enduring when the world demands surrender." Nathan exhaled slowly, chest tight. Step by step, trace by trace, he had followed. He had endured. He had risked. And now, he would witness confrontation, not with weapons, but with presence, with choice, with truth. Suddenly, the wind shifted violently, tearing at their coats and scarves. Nathan stumbled slightly, gripping a jagged rock. Mara steadied him, eyes locked on the watchers. "Do you see now?" she said. "The cliffs are not passive. The sea is not indifferent. They judge as much as any human hand. And you are untested." The watchers paused, understanding, but unwilling to act rashly. Nathan felt the electric tension of the moment, every heartbeat synchronized with the crash of waves below, every breath a tether between risk and presence. Mara stepped forward.